It's just the.
You good with that?
What is it?
You good if she records audio?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I have these two handouts. They're just like they're on the actual slides.
Yeah, perfect.
If you guys want to look at them, and I'll point them out as they're coming.
Okay.
So, yeah, my presentation is called, we can do better, but really we can do better. And it's about how I think, we can increase customer loyalty, but also employee morale through our social engagement and community support efforts. Right, so I'll go on from that. So, you guys have heard me talk a lot about the background before, and I don't want to spend too much time on these, obviously, but, these statistics, which were provided by the American Civil Liberties Union just last year, so, they are relevant. They highlight how the system was really built against specific populations from the very beginning. For example, we all know that even though white people and, sorry, I'm a little nervous with this mask too.
Yeah, you're
Take a
fine.
deep breath.
Yeah.
We're all friends
I'm
and
so
family.
nervous talking in front of people, and I do it all the time. But for
Yeah.
some reason, as soon as I start, my heart rate just
Yeah,
goes.
that's
totally normal, and I'm
Yeah,
used to
just
it.
go slow. You're okay.
Yeah.
So like I said, a lot, even though we all know that people of color and white people use cannabis at similar rates, Black people specifically are up to 4 times more likely of being convicted of a charge, specifically a nonviolent one. Also, specifically, 92% of the charges are for possession, so not even for selling. And I think that acknowledging this complicated past is really crucial to thriving in a community, specifically one as diverse, wealthy, and educated as the Bay Area. I think that we're kind of living in this era when cannabis has this whole wellness mantra almost, but through this paradox, we're also contributing to systemic oppression on a regular basis by dismissing the intensity of the problem. And through those same ACLU statistics, we can see that the inequalities still persist even if people want to enter the legal field. For example, 80 to 90% of dispensaries that are legal are white-owned, so not only are people of color being pushed out of the industry, they're also getting in trouble more for doing the exact same things that our community members are doing. So with more legalities progressing through, the stigma of it is really going away, but all with total disregard to historical truth. So I also want to point out that with COVID especially, these communities are suffering even more. The racial gaps are stretching, such as, for example, the farm workers that we did for our tip matching. I've worked with these communities before, and I know that they lack health care, social security, so they're already at a disadvantage, and we have helped these communities out before, so we are familiar to it, So I'm actually doing the Business of Cannabis course through Oak City Everyday's Cool Initiative,
Oh, that's right.
which I'm really grateful for, by the way. But just yesterday we read that a 2018 survey, so just 2 years back, from a global communications marketing firm, Edelman, found that nearly 2/3 of consumers now choose, switch to, or boycott a brand based on its stand on societal issues, up from 51% in 2017. So this number is growing, especially with the uprise, the recent uprise of BLM in 2020. So, they also talk about how basically this represents a new relationship between a company and consumers, where their purchase is premised on the actual company's values, but not only that, the actual execution of said values. It's also more intrigued by a company, efforts to leap into activism if needed. So other studies also, really did explain and prove the rising influence of a company's values with consumer purchasing habits, So going on to, more relevance of that for a company. So Clayton, actually, a month ago you asked me what I meant by reparations, because in your mind, that talks about donations and a lot of finance. And while these are important, don't get me wrong, I think that I would encourage us to expand beyond the narrative of that and really look at the actual big picture of cannabis injustice. Because what is not being talked about and what isn't being addressed is the generational trauma that has resulted from, the war on drugs years ago, or, such racial disparities. So I think that if what we want is an increase in, sales and customer support, then perhaps we should force ourselves to get creative with our social platform. And in 2021, I think, think about the lost education and extracurricular opportunities in a child's life when they're, worried about the system, worried about their family in the system, right? Not only that, but if you have any sort of drug felony on your record, most colleges won't accept your application and you're not eligible for federal financial aid, which is how I paid through college, and some states don't allow you to have a job or even voting rights, so clearly people are at a clear disadvantage. It's not necessarily like the legalization aspect of it so much anymore. So while it is not our fault that these injustices have occurred, it is our responsibility, I think, as a thriving business with a platform to finally speak up to these injustices. And I think that, the fact that not many people are actually talking about these uncomfortable issues on a daily basis is because maybe they just don't know the, severity that these problems still exist, which is why I think, perspectives from diverse representations are important to your team. And I think that this company does have the correct idea of our values and our reparations, what they are. But I think what's missing is, an authentic and fresh execution of said initiatives that not only make us stand out as innovative, but just like genuinely and actually compassionate towards the community members, I think that we should want to show our community that we care about them before we're actually called to action, Does this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Take a breath.
Sorry, I'm going
Slow
fast.
down.
Okay,
It's good, but you gotta just bring it down.
I'll chill.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so, more relevant. With January 31st specifically, let me ask you, every year who beats us at Best Dispensary, despite the fact that, I've been there, I'm
Fucking kind people.
exactly, despite the fact that they have really similar quality product and really similar wait times, they're really similar to us. So somehow they still gather up the community support, that claims that they're a better dispensary than us, which I think must result in an increase in their sales, reputation, and not ours.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about it, even if I were coming to Santa Cruz, I didn't want to be able to say that I work at the best dispensary, right? So these titles, whether official or not, they do kind of take a dispensary to that next level. And I think that, whether or not you take that into consideration, our business is at a great disadvantage for not, taking advantage of such reputations and talk, especially through our social platform. So, personally, I know a lot of people who love Kind Peoples or they love and defend Treehouse, that newer one on SoCal,
Mm-hmm.
And I would have to say that one, employee morale, but also customer loyalty is definitely what, plays into them always winning these kind of titles. And people love shopping for cannabis, especially during quarantine, and I see a lot of power in that. So I think that our own lack of community investment is a major barrier right now, getting in the way of us being a more modern, but also just more, authentic company. So this brings us to my actual ideas, which is the main, chunk of this. So I think if what we want is customer loyalty and customers defending and voting for us, then we kind of have to step away from performative allyship, which is this term that came about in 2020, where
I'm sorry, what was the term?
performative allyship, it's this term where companies kind of are only in it for their own profit, and then once called to action, they'll sign a check or they'll put up a Black Lives Matter poster, right? More for the image and not so much for the actual integral beliefs of it all. So before I start, I just want to quickly remind you of geometry's transitive property of equality, which states that if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. So in other words, if I support Santa Cruz Naturals and Santa Cruz Naturals supports social justice, I am in a way supporting to social justice. It makes it really easy for your customers to feel good about their purchases with us because they know that the company itself is a good company with integrity. And I think that in such uncertain and competitive times as we're clearly living in today, the communities or the companies that prosper will be those that do actually hold integrity, but not only have strong values, actually execute them in authentic ways. I think that so far from what I've learned through Oaksterdam and the very few courses I've taken, I think a modern business knows how to invest resources and time and care in communities that will invest in them. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So this idea starts off right. Oh, actually, no. This idea is just verbal, but I think it's unique and beneficial because it shows our authenticity to our customers and can improve employee morale.
This one's not on here.
No, no.
Okay.
So since tip matching is something that we've done already, I believe that along with the $100 tip or $100 bonus and the employee of the parking spot, the employee of the month should also be given the honor to pick the organization we partner up with for that month's tip matching. And if it's too much responsibility to let's say have them research an organization, whatever, we can almost do it like New Leaf style, when you don't buy a bag,
Yeah.
they give you options
It's a token.
of widely diverse representations. Well, we could do the same thing, We have 3 to 6 options of diverse companies that people can see themselves and the customers can see themselves represented. Like I said, this proves that we are not just worried about our image, but we can still encourage customers to know about this because don't we do like an employee of the month post, right, where we talk about them a little bit?
We used to. We're not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, when
I think we're gonna move away from that and introduce each employee at some point, but I don't want to make it just about the employee month. I want to introduce everyone on.
Totally. So, well, if that had been the case anyway, my idea was to, along with the post, explaining the employee, we in that post talk about the organization. We promote the organization and say, Lo chose an immigrant advocate group because her parents are undocumented. So this is, people see that authentic representation, and trust me, these stories do exist in your community, Like I said, this proves that we not only use our resources to pay back, but we also still actively encourage education and advocacy from the inside out, And real quick, so these,
So this is your suggested kind of
yeah,
enhancement of the existing or what we were doing for
exactly. And then real
of the
quick,
tip matching.
so these are just some potential collaborations that I, took some time researching. As you can see, some of them are in Santa Cruz, such as Simply of Service or Barrios Unidos. I actually know one of the leaders of Simply of Service. They help provide food and resources to homeless folks around Santa Cruz, We also have Cannabis for Black Lives that helps support young Black entrepreneurs entering the cannabis business, So as you can see, there are people doing great work already, but I think that our company's extra resources can help them provide better quality help to our own community members. And establishing, continuous, authentic relationships with these kind of organizations is, what really proves that we are trying to learn and we are trying to actively collaborate, not just, signing a check and writing it off. And I think that, the uprise, like I said, of the Black Lives Matter movement has really proven that customers truly do care about not only the shopping experience and the product quality, but the actual companies that they are, investing in. So I think that if we want to stand out, we should show them that we are offering things that truly do differentiate than what our competitors are offering, right? So I'll go back to the one that you're pointing at real quick. I actually, just casually asked some of my coworkers if they, would seem excited about it, and they all really did. Damon specifically, he's pretty new, but he specifically said that he would feel good about himself knowing that his work could help an organization that he actually cares about, which is how he worded it. So I can guarantee that this would improve employee morale because we're all going to be working towards something that's greater than ourselves, Plus, I would like to add that there's been multiple times in front of supervisors like Alex or, Jeffrey in the past where customers have told us specifically that they only came to shop for the tip matching. Even on online ordering. I had an online order for a cart or something, and the guy specifically said, I just want you to know I only came for the tip matching in front of Alex, and he put a $20 bill in the tip match, which never happens, right? That benefits us, the company, our image, everything. So clearly people do care about these initiatives. And lastly, your employees deserve to feel proud of the work that they do, We deserve to work for a company that uses its power that we provide for, the use of our community, especially in this industry. Like I said, we cause a lot of harm just by existing and thriving. So now, it's not our fault, but we kind of do have a moral responsibility in that sense to give back if we actually want to feel proud of the work that we're doing. And I'm happy to talk more about these ideas in depth later, getting into the details. But as you can see, gotta get through them. So this next one's probably the more semi-complicated one of the most. So for reference, I think that we should all follow @710labs.edu on Instagram. I don't know if you do already, but they do a very admirable job with their education. That right there is actually a picture of,
Is this 710 Labs?
Yeah. that's a picture, and
This is a separate handle they're using though for education.
yeah, 710 Lab
Okay.
EDU is specifically, and I think that, like I said, that's a really good standard that we should hold ourselves, to. We can base a lot of what we do based on their education style, because I think that they're really direct, and it is lengthy, but the way that everything is explained really does make it intriguing. So, similarly, we create educational posts on Instagram based on like history or horticulture, prohibition, just all actual facts. And we could even dedicate some posts to cannabis advocates like, Jack Herrera, who we all know, or up and coming BIPOC advocates, give them a little bit of light. And the incentive is that if the customer follows us and reads it, comes into the store and answers a trivia question on it, then they can unlock a discount. And I think that the idea will benefit us because it creates informed customers who know the science and the history of what they are buying. So they don't need to rely on all of the contradicting info out there. They know that they can trust us as a company because, one, obviously we know what we're talking about. We have all that information, on our social platform. But two, we aren't holding this information back. We're spreading it out there. We want them to know about it, right? And I think that they'll be intrigued by it because it's kind of like a game. Like with trivia, there's not really an expectation to get it right. It's either you kind of do or you don't. And if they do, then they unlock, a $1 pre-roll with a purchase of like 25 or more or something, or 25% off an order. That way, if they get it right, they can spread that message on. And like, okay, I'm a stoner, my friends are stoners, I brought it up to everybody. We would definitely follow this account based solely on those, kind of incentives. But then that would benefit the company because we see other sales and we get to actually see the incentives that we're talking about. So the first idea is on this. These
Is
go
it example 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you're like scrolling on Instagram, for example, the actual content that they would see is right here. It would be the 3 pictures that you slide on. The first one is that guy with the pot is fun poster. Second one is just that quote. I won't read it; it's a little lengthy, but it goes along the lines of how cannabis laws do affect Black lives. It's this man's post. That could just be like a black and white picture, right? That last one is actually a piece of art by a Black artist, and it says, "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor," which I think is a quote that has really impacted all of us in 2020, right? So again, that would be the content. The actual education of it, that is right over here, that first example 1. And again, it's lengthy, similar to 710 Labs, but this is actually just something I wrote up based on some research. And it says, although cannabis wellness has been consumed by BIPOC communities for centuries, legalization dates back to 1964 when a libertarian attorney, James R. White III, organized the reform advocacy group Lamar, which stands for Legalizing Marijuana. So, yada yada, right here, such as Allen Ginsberg, who is seen here wearing the poster "Pot is fun." That's kind of the description of the picture, right, but a different person. So something, along the lines of an educational fact. And lastly, this ends to a relevant point because it talks about how Lamar merged with California NORML, which is one of the most noted groups for cannabis advocacy today. We often reference them in like Leaf Fly or something like that, So that would be the actual education portion of it. Interesting, we think so too. Come in and answer a trivia question about this exact information for a chance to win a $1 pre-roll with a purchase of like 25 or more, or 30 or more, right? And I thought the question might be something along the lines of, what is the name of the libertarian attorney who helped initiate Lamar in 1964? So they either get it right, or maybe they say it's, Allen Ginsberg, who's the guy in the picture. But if they get it wrong, it doesn't have to be like an awkward thing. I was thinking we could give them a hemp whip or like a sticker, something for trying a lighter, because that way they know that one, we have their backs, But two, it's kind of like free advertisement too, because then we get our little like name out there every now and then for a sticker. So it doesn't have to be like an awkward kind of thing, I think I really haven't seen much like this. I know we tried, or I heard about like a voting incentive or something, so we can do something, but I think that I can help you create something a little more interactive and fun in that way to kind of capture your customers' attention. And I think it'll benefit us in the long run because, like I said, your customers will know that we know what they're talking about, and then it'll also require your budtenders to know that much more because we have to know, the answers. We have to know some of these facts, and even if it's just trivia, it is just that much more knowledge than we have over competitors, Another example real quick is the second one right here. So the content post could be this picture, you know, war on drugs, the war on us, from a previous rally. And the description could be that timeline that I wrote up. The ones that I briefly, or I want to specify for the question are, 1951 Boggs Act, which made it so that increasing mandatory minimums was possible, and then the 1956 Eisenhower Narcotics Act, those two together made it so that low-level drug convictions could now result in over 20-year prison terms, which we know are most likely going to be, for people of color. And then lastly, like 1970, that's when the Controlled Substance Act was introduced. And that's kind of when the, coined term war on drugs kind of started, anti-marijuana. But as you can see, it dates back to that, and how many of our customers, know that, right? So the trivia question, which is a little bit harder than the other one, would just be what two acts that came before 1970 added to U.S. racial injustice by increasing mandatory minimums for low-level drug convictions, such as cannabis. We could even have it like on a little whiteboard for them to actually see like the A through C options, right? So we don't have to just like all be talking it. So if they get it right, again, pre-roll or 25% off, right? If they get it half right or they get it completely wrong, then they get a sticker or a hemp wick, something, to really spread that out. And I think like with this simple implementation, your customers will kind of be intrigued and think it's a little bit, interesting on that. And then this last one's really simple, doesn't really have to do much with social justice or anything. Also, that name is just a placeholder name. We can definitely move that out of the way. But we actually do something similar to this. I know that in January we did like a strain of the month for Banana Punch. So we could do something similar and actually implement it in the store as well, where we have, let's say, a journal of like the common strains, like Prism, Stony Cookies, the ones that are pretty commonly here. Same with pre-rolls, Ruby Slippers pre-roll, etc. And every bud tender can actually write in their descriptions of, the aroma, the taste profile, the experience in their own words. So this way, first off, I know that we have binders of like actual chemical information of cannabis, but this way your newly hired bud tenders are all better informed and can expand on their like conversational approaches of explaining and stuff. And they don't have to lose the like month and a half of like trying the stuff themselves and all of that. And I think that we can provide a more accurate and better service because like as a consumer, I know a lot about cannabis obviously, so when I go to a dispensary, I'm testing the bud tenders to see how can you describe it, or do you describe it as gassy? Like what does that even mean? Not the standard things that we all know sort of what they mean and have been used enough for us to be aware of them. But I know Samantha and like Michael, they do really precise, just unique ways of explaining stuff. They get really excited about it. And there's actually some stuff called strain journals that exist already, like templates and stuff, or actually books, where they look just like this. They have the strain name, sativa indica hybrid, and then like space for us to talk about the appearance, the flavor, all of that effect. So as far as like our social media goes, if that's something you're interested in, I was thinking maybe the employees could actually like write them in like the binder that we have, and we could have something along the lines of like Bud Tender Friday, so something, if that's too nichey, that's something, we can work around too, but the actual pictures of the journals that they're writing are what we post, That way people can see that we are taking our time and it's not just the company being like, hey, this is gassy. It's us being like, oh, I smoked this with some GMO crumble in a blend. It was so good, experience, super funny, all that stuff. Because during COVID, like a lot of people aren't coming and they're not really buying either because what sells them is the dispensary experience. So we should bring that to them. And I think it would increase online sales and delivery because people are kind of getting that like personalized, unique, diverse experience through just the social media. And like maybe we could even end that little reel of like, so that's all our descriptions, right? Maybe we could end it by being like, have you tried Banana Punch? What do you think? And Instagram has that little option for us to like, reply and stuff. And then we could repost people's and they feel like they're part of it too, Because in the store people love, like telling us what they thought of stuff too, So that way they're part of the experience, like I'm saying, and they're gonna just, be more intrigued by our company. So, yeah, that's a lot
Take
of
a breath.
information.
That's great. This was great. Good job, Will.
Yeah, and I wanted to have this, I don't know if you guys, that's just my conclusion. Really what the most important part of that is that I think we need to put the responsibility on ourselves to set the stage for all other dispensaries. Because I think that if we invest in an educated and socially aware community that knows that we are compassionate, then they will invest in us. And my resources are right here if you guys like want to take a picture of any of those or something. Yeah,
Will you email us this?
yeah, I can email that
When
to
you're
you.
done?
Yeah, it was a little lengthy. Thank you
That's
for
okay,
being
this
patient.
is exactly what I asked you for, so this is perfect. Do you want feedback? Or
Yeah.
do you have to go into the shop?
I have to clock in the equipment, yeah.
Okay.
But feedback would be very much
And I'm gonna
appreciated.
marinate on it a little bit.
Yes.
So just on you, you're incredibly articulate
Thank you. That's
and
fine.
super knowledgeable, despite talking fast. And you made eye contact with all of us, which is a
Huge.
huge
Yeah.
issue I have with human beings when they don't look someone in the eye. So that's that. I'm glad to hear that the herbal consultants and the customers like the tip matching
Mhm.
exercise. It is, it was an experiment that Alex and I dove into last year just to see what would happen. And it's a feel good, right? For customers, herbal consultants, and leadership team. And it definitely is aligned with like where Colin is and making his investments in community
Mhm.
and expansion in Watsonville, especially trying to make meaningful contributions in that community, especially because I think largely in Santa Cruz County, most of the nonprofits are pretty well funded,
Mhm.
whereas in North Monterey County, not
Exactly.
so much, right? So I think he's trying to make a meaningful effort to put the funds in the most appropriate place. So I'm glad to hear that customers and herbal consultants like it. I like the idea of herbal consultants picking it, or the idea of the token system. I like that. I like that. Where else do I want to go with this? I like the gamification of posts. And I like the play off of taking social into the stores. So you gamify it and then it forces a visit. That two-touch approach is very good for sales and very good for customer loyalty. So I liked that. That was good thinking. And conversely, it drives people to follow us on social, which has been one of Alex's major pushes, is try to increase engagement, increase in-store purchases, those folks following us on social. Pretty easy to get the folks that are buying online following us on social, they go together, but the folks that purchase in-store sometimes can be a little disconnected, so it would drive that. As far as the rest of the stuff, so I came on board literally a week later, the George Floyd incident happened. And everybody asked me, what are you gonna do? Alex, what are we gonna do? And I was like, I just started this fucking job. And so there was a gap in our response, and I think the herbal consultants didn't like it.
Mhm.
And I know that, but I had to take my marketing time to figure out what's the most appropriate approach. I also didn't know the brand, I didn't know Colin well at all, so I had to dig through all this stuff. So what I learned out of that was there were a variety of responses from different companies. Some said nothing, some said a lot, some said a lot and didn't do anything. It
Yeah.
was a mixture, right? To some of your points are totally on point. And the intent of the tip matching effort was to try to not be the one-time donation to NAACP in Monterey County, to extend that to what you said. I know. Beyond bandwagoning,
Oh yeah. exactly.
bandwagoning, actually participate, and so that was our effort at doing that, and it was a test. And so the test went well, herbal consultants and customers alike, and all the nonprofits that Alex, when she makes the phone call, let them know that they're getting cash, have always been overjoyed
Mhm.
with the contribution, so that's good. So the challenge we have, and I know you have to go to work, the challenge we have, and this is where and you and I can continue to have this conversation, is I have to balance our current customer base with the demographics of both the counties,
Mhm.
and then figure out how we position something like that to the customer base we have and to the counties we serve. And balance in our brand's perspective and stance on all of this. And so while it's a absolute a necessity to combat all of this. And I just finished a book about cannabis and the persecution of anyway, it was connected to AIDS in San Francisco and the growth of cannabis legalization. But anyway, we absolutely have to take a stance, but we have to be very calculated in the stance we take. So my example is 710 Labs, EDU, there's a reason they have a separate handle. So 710 Labs is creating separation between their brand identity and then their position or stance on different elements. And it's strategic. Unfortunately, what you see there is I don't want to sacrifice my brand for my stance on certain things, because you could easily, unfortunately, we've seen, sweep that away because they don't want to sacrifice that. So if it comes down to authenticity, we have to be really clear on how we want to show up and how it serves the brand, and is it authentic, and are we willing to take that stance, not do something separate and sweep it away, but say, I am Santa Cruz Naturals, I believe X and I support X, and this is how I demonstrate it through staff, through customers, and through the community. So I think this is a good start in the conversation. We can continue the conversation and weigh all these things and then see where we come out on it. But I appreciate your tenacious spirit and bring it to Clayton and really advocating for it. And what I'd say is let's continue the conversation. We won't stop here. It might be a little slow because we're busy, but it is a function of Alex's job to grow social media, and I see this as a facet of it. And then I'll stop there. Does that sound good?
Yeah, it does, and I think that you're, I had no idea about like that whole, aspect of it too. But like you said, I think that's a work in progress, because even as I'm doing my Oaksterdam classes, like that's a huge part of it. I'm like already learning so much on it, and I'm sure that as I'm gaining more on like of the businessy, not so much the social aspect of it, I'm sure they're bound to like, come hand in hand as well.
Yeah, and what's great is I have the business acumen, right? And then you have the
sociology.
The socio piece of it, and that will help me, and then I can help you with the business end of it. So it'll strike a good balance.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, great. I will let you get back to work.
Yeah.
Email this to us.
Yeah, I will.
And then I'll probably connect with you in a month.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
okay.
more than
Great.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Yeah,
Of
I thought it
course.
was really nice, and I enjoyed that.